All right, good morning everybody. So here's the plan for today. Well, it's Saturday, but I don't have anything going on, so I figured to come out to the Scooby project here and get some random stuff done, because why not? We picked up a Discreet-O-Matic 6500 here. It's the new and improved model over the 5000. So we're just gonna set that on the ground real gently.
About as gently as we're gonna set this bag of sand on the ground. It's too much for the ASVRT 50 drag and drop. There you go. We got her down on the ground. So this is actual sand that we use for our 1 inch of screed over the base, and it's also the same material that we use to compact into the pavers. So we buy bagged sand because we know that the sand is in a very controlled environment. We're not getting any large granulars in it. It doesn't matter if you buy it from a yard or whatever. The thing we're being most cautious about, and the reason we're going overboard, is we just don't want any big rocks in our sand base because it can throw everything off. And so these guys buy the bagged sand, period. They've only got 3/4 of an inch of tolerance, so if they did get a larger aggregate in there, let's say a 1/2 inch rock or a 3/4 inch rock, it could actually screw up your whole screeding process. So the sand that you use is, you got to be pretty careful that it's been sorted, screened, because this is also going to go into the joint spacing of all those pavers. Okay, I shouldn't have to say this, but just in case I do, you never allow anybody to walk on your base. You don't walk on, once you have the base, the sand screeded, you're not allowed to step on it. You can't gently step on it. You can't put a board down on it and walk on it. You just stay off from it. It's an important thing to note that when you see these guys working, they're actually only walking on the base that they lay down. Oh, this is a great shot. This is how we secure our pavers in place. This edging actually gets pounded in with steel stakes with metal spikes. And one of the questions that maybe should come up is, well, won't those metal spikes rust and compromise? And yeah, we actually want them to rust underground, because then they kind of rust weld together. Now, some companies will use for their edging restraint concrete. And let's just talk about the good and bad with using concrete, because I feel more bad than good. Some people will disagree with me. But when you use concrete as an edge restraint on a paver patio, if the top of the pavers are here, you got to get that concrete almost up to the top of those pavers, because remember, the pavers are only that thick, and if you don't get as much concrete as possible, there isn't a whole lot holding it in place, because concrete doesn't get spiked down into the ground. It literally just stays there and uses the weight of it. And what happens is you can't grow grass very well right up to your pavers, because the concrete has to come up so high, there's really no space for organic material or grass to grow. And you'll see long term that does lead to this weird growth pattern of grass going up the paver patios. If you see it dead or not as thick, it's because maybe they used a concrete edge restraint. I know that's a lot of information for a concrete edge restraint, but it's just my 2 cents on that. So the sand that we use, you can see, is super critical, because it's not just goes below it, but it is going to go on top of it. And we will discuss in depth polymeric sand, because Blaine and I and Sam and Tim and all of us have at length, said, is polymeric sand the best bet? And in our neck of the woods, we just don't feel like it is. Kind of feel like just regular sand and, bearing down and being ready to do the maintenance is the best bet. But we do get a lot of freeze-thaw cycle in Minnesota, which means that this whole patio is in a state of fluctuation. And if for some reason one area moves more than another, and we're using polymeric sand, since it mats pretty much, it all interconnects. If we do get a weird paver moving out of sync with everything else from the freeze-thaw cycle, that polymeric sand can give you what we call fishtails. They hook up and they just kind of dangle there looking weird, right? And then you got to cut it out and you got to start all over again. Where with regular sand, we found just to be, it just works for us. That's all. So as we lay this base out, you'll see we've already got class 5 down. This is actually the second layer of class 5. But on this particular project, we've actually got to kind of work our way out of the job site. If you look right behind that excavator is a very narrow gate. And so these guys have the whole backyard finished, but once they go through that gate, they can't bring equipment back through it because they're basically cutting themselves off. So they've got to get the entire backyard done before they can, they've just got to get the entire backyard done. I mean, we can't go back and touch anything up once the pavers are in place. When you are picking up your own Screed-O-Matic 6000 or 6500 or whatever number you guys decide to pick up, which is nothing more than a 2x4, crown it. Make sure you get the straightest 2x4 you can. Some people don't realize this, but a lot of 2x4s have a banana or a fish hook to them, and that'll show up in your base if you're not careful. So make sure you understand to get the crown in the best one possible, and double check your 2x4, because if it's left out in the elements too long, it'll warp as well. So even though you buy the straightest one, in a week or 2 weeks, if you've had it sitting out in the sun and it's been rained on and then sun and rain, it's gonna warp. It's gonna twist on you, and that's gonna show up in your base. So just always double check the crown and the straightness of your Screed-O-Matic before you just blindly assume that it's good to go, which is nothing more than our word for a 2x4. So you see how Blaine is actually stepping over the base, even though there isn't going to be any sidewalk there. He's careful not to disturb the sand because it's just a habit you get into. Sam works off from what he's already laid down. That's perfectly fine. But as Blaine is stepping into and out of the scene, he's stepping across the sand.
All right, well, Mother Nature just decided to dump a bunch of rain on us, which is fine. We got done what we wanted to do today. So then tomorrow, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the radiuses cut in, get the rest of the border in, get the edging in, get the grade where it needs to be, button this whole little area up, and then we're just going to start doing the same thing up the rest of the path.
Is that all, Sam? So we do have a new concrete saw, and I want to talk to you about options you can use to cut concrete with.
Skittle saw.
So this is a worm drive walk behind concrete saw. It doesn't matter, you can use anything that has a concrete blade. You can use a regular circular saw.
This is going to make cutting all those radiuses we have out on our site really easy, hopefully. Oh yeah, a cutoff saw. My most favorite is DeWalt. Hasn't made it back from up north yet, which is fine. We'll just use the backup Milwaukee. And that has a metal blade on it, so we need to grab a concrete one. Crusher Supreme Hydro Forged, it's 9-inch, so we're gonna try those out. We'll get the truck loaded up and get on out of here.
So what I was saying is the blade is the most important thing. It's not the saw. You can use a battery powered circular or concrete saw. You can use the worm drive saw. The most important thing is the blade. If you've got a bad blade, it doesn't matter what's spinning it, it's not gonna cut. If you've got a good blade, it doesn't matter what's spinning it, it's more than likely gonna cut better than a bad blade will cut. So just get yourself a good blade. And you need a concrete blade. It's what you need. To cut concrete, you need a concrete blade. We always test them out, give them one test cut. That's the boys testing this out right here. This one came from Blades Direct. You can buy it off from the shelf. Just our experiences, these guys have always proven quality, so we use them.
All right, I'll show you guys how I measure out for these cuts, or this sort of cut. There's, I'm sure, more than one way to do this, but this is the way that I learned, and has been the easiest for me. So I'll start with your square here, and this is going to be the end that gets cut, so it'll drop in like that. And all you do is you measure. So 6, these squares are 6 1/4. So you measure up from the side that you're gonna keep. Make a mark at the 6. And then measure from the other side, which is gonna be 1 1/4 inches. Measure up from the side that is gonna stay 1 1/4 inches. Then I just use the trowel as a straight edge. Line up the dots to the best of your ability. Measure it. There you go. There you go. Cut along the red line. Get rid of that bit. Let's drop right on in there.
Now I know that was a little bit of a slower sequence, but I also know that some guys aren't really all that familiar with cutting in, you know, some of these corners. So I wanted to kind of leave something in there for you guys that maybe. Now we're fat on this sidewalk. We're way fatter than we need to be, which is okay because we're going to be cutting that off, but we're also not compromising any of our field. And what I say is, by going longer on it, we're ensuring that when we make the cut, that the field that stays within the cut zone doesn't get altered or changed.
All right, this little bit is all done here. We got our border in and the edging in. We got this first little bit over here done. And this is going to be our radius going up through here. So yeah, the next step is going to be getting this in. It's going to be a lot of cuts, whole lot of cuts.
Right. And so there's what they use is they use the actual border, as you can tell, to mark out exactly where their cuts are going to be, and it looks like we're throwing away a lot of brick. So the brick actually won't get thrown away. It actually will just get brought to the front and used for the rest of the project. Okay, so the soldier course, this is what we call it inside of our company. See those darker bricks? We call that the soldier course. And the way we like to do it is we like to use a solid color soldier course because it helps define different areas. You can also have a soldier course that blends in as well. Now in this case, we're trying to use this soldier course as kind of like a sense of direction when we're laying out the field. So, and I just like the way a darker colored or a different colored soldier course looks. To each their own. There is no wrong thing about that. Some people double up soldier courses. That looks really cool as well. You might as well just know that you have options. Your soldier course can, be a different block style, different block size. You can get really creative with soldier courses. There's companies that do amazing inlays with different colored blocks. So we would, if we were going to do an inlay on this patio, we'd build the entire patio, and then, you know, like if you get a cool pattern in the middle or something like that, what you would see us do then is lay out that pattern and then cut out the pavers and then build the pattern inside of it. We don't actually try to build the pattern as we build the rest of the, we don't actually try to build the inlay as we build the entire patio. We would do the inlay separately. Making these cuts with that saw gets to be a little tricky, because when you're making those tight radius cuts, you have a flat blade, and so you got to be a little careful how you make some of those cuts. Those can be a little tricky. They may not all go just the way you want them to. So this is the same sand that we used for our base, is now actually the sand that we use to top dress the patio. This is where, if you were using a polymeric sand, a couple things. You got to make sure that your patio is, before you use polymeric sand, has to be completely dry. You can't have even a drop of rain, otherwise when you lay the polymeric sand out, it'll instantly stick to any wet surface.
Alright guys and gals, we're back out on our site today. It's a cold one. Anyways, it rained like a son of a gun last night. Anyways, plan for today. First we're gonna get our junk out of here, and then we have that pile of dirt right there. We're gonna start getting the grade where it needs to be over here and over here. But for that, we're gonna get the excess sand out of here. We're gonna finish this little spot off over here. This is gonna go kind of like this, and then die into this path already. And we're gonna do that on the second half of the day, because as soon as we start on that, we're not gonna be able to get the machines back here anymore.
So what I was saying about polymeric sand is, when Sam was walking around, you seen that little bit of rain coming down. Even that little bit of moisture will activate the polymeric sand, and if it's not in the joint spaces when it's activated, if it's sitting on top of the actual field of pavers itself, it will stick, just like glue. So you got to be super careful when you're using polymeric sand that you have good conditions, extremely dry. It can work great for you. Some people like it. We just don't prefer it. The process stays the same throughout. Base down, screed rail set, sand in place, don't step on the sand. As you're laying it out, you're gonna have a person hopefully feeding you block. The way we do it is one guy lays the field out and one guy feeds them block. That way the guy that's laying out the field can kind of see ahead, and the guy that's feeding them block knows what to do.
Alright guys, this is it. I just cut the last paver for this whole backyard project. The last one right here.
Still a lot left to do in the backyard. It's got to be packed, then it's got to be resanded one more time. We got to touch up a lot of the different, little grades, but we got the big majority of the paver work done on this project. But we still got the entire front yard, which actually is more complicated than the back.
All right, happy day. We're done with the back. Well, mostly done with the back. I got packets still, but all the pavers are in, edging's in.
That's just a good feeling when you're finally done with like something that you've been working on for a month and you put that last piece to the puzzle in place, yeah, you know you got more to do. Like all these steps got to be laid down, glued out. We've got to touch up everything before it's done, but you look at it and you kind of get to the point where you just feel good about what you've got done so far. And sometimes you got to give yourself those little victories, guys. And that's it for the backyard. She's finished up, wrapped up. But the front yard is the last part of this project, and that's what we're going to be bringing you next. And then you will see the entire thing just come together. God bless. Go get them, you guys. Hopefully we'll see you on another one.